Welcome to our latest episode in a new season of what we're calling Open Door Policy mini-sodes. Each mini-sode will have a specific theme, and we'll be revisiting some of the inspiring conversations we've had with guests from our previous seasons. Today, we're talking about the impact of grandparents. Grandparents have an important role to play in both the lives of their children, grandchildren, and in the life of the church as well. They are examples of faith as well as powerful intercessors. Pope Francis addressed grandparents saying, "I want to greet all the grandmothers and grandfathers to thank them for their special place in families and for their importance to the new generations." If we look at the life of Jesus, his grandparents assuredly played an important role in his upbringing. The long-standing Catholic tradition is that his grandparents' names were Anne and Joachim. Now saints and venerated across the globe, Saint Anne and Saint Joachim are the patron saints of grandparents, and a couple we should ask to accompany us on our walk with Jesus. In the lives of our guests, grandparents have played an important role. Kate Bryan shares that her grandfather's wisdom impacted how she lives her life.
I was born and raised Catholic, but throughout all of the struggles that I've ever faced in my life, and even now, my faith is such a steadfast part of who I am. I don't oftentimes, I wasn't this little kid that was like going into school, waving my rosary around and being like, let's pray the rosary, everybody. But I wanted to always be a joyful witness of God and what God was doing in my life and what he could do in other people's lives. And my grandfather, who I mentioned earlier, who his father was visited by Blessed Solanus Casey, he would always tell us when we were younger, you have a responsibility. The second you leave the house, you have a responsibility to be a good example of your family, your faith, and God. Like, we have a responsibility to be a good example. So
when you leave the house, you have a responsibility to be a good example of your family, your faith, and God. Grandparents tie us into our heritage. And as Catholics, grandparents tie us into our spiritual heritage. Kate's story highlights how powerful it is to be reminded that we represent more than ourselves. We are connected to and represent our family of origin, but also our spiritual family, the church. Our actions matter. Kate's grandfather did a good job of giving her a sense of our connectedness. Because they experienced deeply the power of generations and how intertwined our lives are, grandparents are powerful sources of wisdom and insight. Pope Francis reminds us of this reality when he said, "The words of grandparents contain something special for young people, and they know it. The words that my grandmother gave me in writing the day of my priestly ordination, I still carry with me always in the breviary, and I read them often, and they do me good." Our guest, Eileen Newell, shares about her relationship with her grandmother and how that relationship shaped her. Eileen's grandmother shared stories of persecution growing up in Ireland. Take a listen.
Hey, take us back to childhood. Were those four grandparents, like, did you get to cross paths with them some, or, and this huge, beautiful family? Take us into that background.
No, absolutely. So they're Irish, and my grandfathers had passed away before I was born. I was able to actually head to Ireland when I was 2 to meet my granny, my maternal grandmother. My dad's mother was born in Belfast and eventually came to the U.S. after going to England for a bit. And so she met my grandfather here, and they raised their family in Detroit. And so she was around. She was 80 when I was born and passed away when I was in my early teens. So I did get to know her and be able to experience, her faith, which was very interesting, right? So growing up in Belfast.
Wow.
During the Irish War for Independence, and my maternal grandfather would have fought in the Irish War for Independence, and
wow.
My grandmother from Belfast would have experienced firsthand the Catholic Protestant, the neighborhood, right, and growing up in an environment where you were tested truly on your faith.
This grandmother's perspective helped her granddaughter have an appreciation for the freedom to live her faith here in the United States. This appreciation led Eileen to a deeper understanding of the importance of her Catholic faith and the gift to celebrate it. This story is powerful because it highlights how suffering bears fruit, even through generations. If you're a grandparent, you are important. You follow the lineage of Saint Anne and Saint Joachim, You can help your grandchildren through the power of intercession. You have spiritual authority to pray for your children and grandchildren in a way others cannot. Your wisdom and experiences are valuable gifts to your family, and you matter. If you're not a grandparent, reach out to yours. If they're on this side of heaven, take time to visit or call. Our grandparents deserve our honor and have so much to offer us. If your grandparents have passed on, spend some time today interceding for their souls. We are connected to our family, living and gone. And spiritually speaking, we are all still part of the church, just in different stages of our walk with God. We owe those who have gone before us respect, especially in our families and in the faith. Thanks for listening to Open Door Policy. Find more episodes at unleashthegospel.org/podcasts.